Hey everyone, some of you might remember a show from 2000s called Pimp My Ride. It was truly a product of its time, like lightning in a bottle, where no one can recreate it now. If you're a kid and you grew up watching the show, I'm sure it was a dream of yours to have Exhibit give you the keys to your dream car. But now, with the show over, there's been some stories about how most of it was staged, which isn't that surprising when so is every other show. But when the entire premise involves fixing and modifying cars, there's parts that the average viewer wouldn't realize unless they looked into it. Like how 9 times out of 10, the internal issues with the cars would still pertain, like the exhaust or an engine. Because as long as the car looked cool, it didn't matter if the contestant could even use it after. But now, with the help of Reddit AMAs, there's better insight of what it was like to be on the show.
You're at a house, it's not my house, it's a staged house.
And the contestants' houses weren't the only thing Pimp My Ride lied about. The reactions were staged and retaken multiple times, certain upgrades were taken off as soon as the cameras cut.
It's for a boat. He goes, it's a GPS for waterways. It will not work in your car.
And disappointingly, even Exhibit himself.
They just rip it out right after.
Soccer moms coming up to me, telling me about their husband and their car that he had since the 60s. And I was like, stop talking to me about this. I know as much as you do.
When asked if the show was fake, a former contestant replied with a single word correct, which isn't surprising as the show even lied about who the contestants were. For example, in season 2, episode 10, Brooke was introduced as a 22-year-old film lover working hard to go to grad school, which had been fabricated by the producers as she was actually a 25-year-old cocktail waitress planning to move back to New York. The reason for this, as explained by Jake from season 3, was because Pimp My Ride only picked people in their early 20s.
There was a strict age limit of 22 years old.
Confirming that the show was lying about contestants' details before filming had even started. In the first 30 seconds of each episode, Exhibit emphasizes that each contestant doesn't know they're about to get picked.
He has no idea. I'm about to pimp his ride.
Yet this was strange as the contestant always answered the door, always had a microphone on them, and even had their windows blacked out as if they didn't want cameras seeing inside.
Even if it was faked, I miss this era of television where people were just so excited, like go back for look, this guy's just jumping like out of joy. Nowadays most TV shows, people who, even if they're faked, most contestants in a show are just look miserable. Like I can't actually remember the last time I seen like a game show where people actually look excited to be there, either for money or just because they like being like on air. But everywhere I just see like an aura of people like, yeah, look, I'm excited to be here, yeah. Like either they're just miserable or they try really hard to look very serious, to look like more cool. It's, I don't know, just be happy, come on.
Well, it turns out Brooke, the supposed 22-year-old film lover, had been pre-selected by a friend to appear on the show, and as a result she'd state, when Exhibit showed up at my house to tell me—
What year is this? Where someone says, have I got the show for you?
I'd been chosen, not a surprise. What was a surprise was when the producers made me react and then react again to Exhibit showing up, finally coercing me into doing a cartwheel, and she wasn't the only contestant who'd had this experience.
And they push you on how to say it and what to say and everything like that.
The show didn't have an actual script, but they did steer the dialogue in a direction that they wanted. If I said something they liked, they would have me repeat it over and over on camera. This had been commented by Seth, who appeared in season 5, who was also well aware that Exhibit was coming to his house, stating, they told me
you can actually see the exact pinpoint his muscles moved, because as it was scripted.
For a knock at the door, they said that it was either going to be Exhibit or a producer telling me I didn't win. Thinking back on it, that was all bullshit, but it did make the surprise genuine, which was the same experience as Erin from season 4, episode 2.
She was one of 3 contestants. One of them would be chosen. Someone came and knocked at the door. If it was Exhibit, they won.
Each contestant was at least somewhat aware that they'd be getting a knock on the door because, well, the homes they were in were actually owned by Pimp My Ride. A Huffington Post article clarified these houses were oftentimes not the contestants' homes. Instead, each dwelling had been rented by MTV. For example, when Jake from season 3 was asked, did the film crew show up and stage the whole surprise as part of the episode, he'd respond by stating it wasn't my house. It was a place owned by one of the crew members. Similarly, Seth from season 5—
Wouldn't the show work better if they lived like in a, not a more dingy house, but more like lower class place where more people can like relate to, because then they feel more positive seeing these kind of people around this huge event of having like the car being turned into something incredible.
The house was rented from Craigslist because I lived in an apartment, and they need a house with a big open driveway for filming, which is certainly reasonable, although sometimes the house was part of the person's story. In season 2, for example, Eric's car had supposedly been beat up in the rough streets of Compton.
In Compton, ain't no street lights in Compton.
However, judging from a quick look at Google Maps, it seems the episode episode was filmed in a much nicer neighborhood. So if Eric's story was inconsistent and Brooke's story from earlier was downright fabricated, then who else's stories were exaggerated for the sake of the show? Well, it seems pretty much all of them. In season 3, Jake's Buick had been bought from his grandma who smoked.
Now I know who he looks like. I swear to God, ever since that guy, the ginger guy, showed up on screen, I've been thinking like, I swear I've seen him before. He looks like that one actor that I just don't care about or know. Like that guy from the Star Wars game. They look so similar. Kind of like the caveman-ish
to make her
face.
just look like a totally disgusting person. On top of this, the show interviewed Jake's girlfriend toward the start of the episode, yet MTV apparently questioned me having a girlfriend and suggested I dump her because it was better for my desperate dude with a shit car image. A producer
That is shitty. But asking them to dump her just for the show, like, surely couldn't they just ask him to like not have her appear, as opposed to be like, you have to dump her. You won't be on the fucking show if you have to pick around.
responded by stating, why would we want a kid to break up with his girlfriend? How would that have helped the show? So while Jake's claim about his girlfriend was somewhat questionable, the cigarette story was confirmed by Seth, who had a similar experience. I know I'm fat, but they went the extra mile to make me look extra fat by telling the world that I kept candy all over my seat and floor just in case I got hungry. However, it
That's
seems
just
the
funny.
fakest
Come
story
on.
was Justin's in season 6. His front bumper had supposedly fallen off in a car crash.
Here is the result of a 3-car pileup right here.
Although according to a 2010 tweet, my friend Justin was on Pimp My Ride. On TV, he said his RAV4 was involved in a 3-car crash. No, it wasn't. Dude beat his car up with a bat. The same user then clarified, what he told me was that MTV suggested to him that he and his friend should do more damage to the car, which was confirmed by Justin himself, who'd add, yes, they removed my front bumper, used aircraft remover, and enhanced the dent on the side of my car. Whilst introducing the episode, Justin stated,
One of my crazy ex-girlfriends actually threw nail polish on my hood.
although when he was asked why
Oh, that's so minor. Nail polish?
Justin revealed it was just something I made up, while Erin from season 4 was also encouraged to make her car look bad.
They asked to leave trash in the car. We went to In-N-Out, and so they told me to leave it in the cup holder, so I did.
It seems the only
Oh, that's the worst part. Go to a shit place like In-N-Out.
dialogue,
Because it wasn't scripted. I could say whatever I want to say.
and when Exhibit drove the car to the shop,
Exhibit did actually take the cars and drive them away, with the exception of a few that were too broken down, and then they made it look like he did.
although this segment created even more problems.
I really want
Most
to know
people
if that car in the background is the same car he had. There's no way it was from all the years ago back in the show. It's probably a new car. Probably. Oh, man.
Down, and then they made it look like he did.
Although this segment created even more problems. Most people believe that PMR takes the car and gives it back in like a week or something. That's what I thought was going to happen too. But in actuality, they took my car for roughly 7 months, being a massive inconvenience for some of the show's contestants.
And they make it look like they're moving really, really fast, but in reality, they weren't.
When asked for the
My
5 months they
God.
had your car, did they
I didn't grow up with the show, but isn't the only thing they do is just like remove the seats and make it nicer and maybe like paint it pink? Does that really take like 7 months? Fuck that.
supply you with a replacement car? Justin from season 6 replied, no, they gave me $2,000 to rent a car. But I was 19 at the time. I rented a car for a month and it cost me $1,000, forcing Justin to find his own transport for the remaining 4 months. Seth from season 5 had a similar experience, being forced to go to a really small shady company off the freeway by LAX because they were the only ones willing to rent to me because of my age. It sucked having that rental car because they wouldn't take payments over the phone, so once a month I had to drive all the way from West Covina to LAX just for them to swipe my card. Although the rental situation was better for other contestants,
They had my car for about 6 months, and that time I had the rental car for 6 months as well.
with Jake from season 3 adding, they gave me a really nice Mitsubishi Lancer to drive for the time they had the Buick. In the meantime, the crew began to plan how the rides were going to be pimped, although according to a former production staffer, this was also somewhat staged.
Yeah, I was about to say, none of these guys look like they work in a mechanic shop. Like, they all look like they're faking like, oh man, time working out 95. Man, I hate but also love this job. I bet you right now, it's all gonna be like Mexican guys that just like fat as shit, just walking in, just like oil all over their face, just sweating, and then they give it back and they're like, man, we worked really hard on this car. But I have to say, this is probably our masterpiece of the year.
The boardroom scenes with the WCC crew took a long time to shoot. They often had to be fed line by line. Some of those guys never really got used to being on TV. Some of the lines in the shot probably seem rehearsed because producers would come up with them and feed them to the WCC guys. Although excluding this, the mechanics were fairly innocent. The segment where they'd
That man down on the right has never picked up a wrench.
car was almost impossible to fake.
They really did put shit in the vehicles and change everything out.
But when contestants were shown what their new car looked like, Pimp My Ride employed even more staging. Finally came the day for the big reveal. They filmed my reaction to the car at least 10 times before I'd even seen it. And when I did, holy hell, poor Betsy looked like Barbie's dream car from hell. It was pimped to the nines and hideous. This had been written by Brooke, who gave a much different reaction during her episode.
Beautiful, perfect color. Exactly the color I want.
While every other contestant also filmed.
It was the same car. I called it, hell yeah.
Had to take a lot of takes
Yes.
over and over and
Exactly
over
right.
and over and over and over.
I was about to say, this Hummer, whatever car it is, it does look like a time capsule of like the 2000s, where only someone around that time era could like that kind of style.
Justin stated they had to keep retaking my reaction. Seth stated I even had to do the reveal of the car like 3 times. However, Jake's reaction anecdote was the strangest of them all. His first real reaction to the car was just quiet amazement where he said this is good. They immediately yelled redo and then things got a bit weirder. I remember this very clearly. Big Dane, very big dude, he like puts his arm around my shoulder, kind of walks me around the shop for like 10 minutes and he's like, listen, we put a lot of work into this. We expect you to be a little more enthusiastic, although it would have been hard to conjure enthusiasm for a car that barely worked, as Jake—
That looks like shit. I hate matte paint on cars. It's always the ugliest color ever. These are like such pricks. If I was in that situation, I would just, my only reaction would be like me throwing up and just like refuse to do a retake. So that's the only footage they can put on the show.
The problem with the show is they don't fix any of the mechanical issues, and my car was a piece of shit. What they did was make my piece of shit sound exceptionally awesome, which is great, just not great enough to drive on roads. The HuffPost article expanded on this by stating, the car needed a muffler, and so a fake exhaust pipe was installed to make it seem as if that's what the car was supposed to sound like, even though it was just a lack of a muffler, while Exhibit brought up a much more dangerous incident.
There was an instance where one of the cars wasn't fixed correctly, and long story short, this kid was driving this vehicle that was supposed to be like damn near brand new, and the steering wheel came off when he was driving it.
It's therefore no surprise that the production staff has said, I can say that the cars often weren't fully ready when we shot the reveal. Some had to stay in the shop another week or so to get finished before the kids got them back, especially if they had mechanical issues, and it was Seth and his candy bars who seemed to fit this category. Pimp My Ride doubled down on his supposedly crappy diet by installing a cotton candy machine in the boot of the car, which didn't even work as the cotton candy machine didn't have a protective hood that fit. So if I tried turning it on, it would get candy strands everywhere. Very messy, so I never used it again after the shoot. Seth also never used the LED lights installed in the seats as they would get really hot if left on, while he also had to remove the gull-wing doors because the pistons used to lift them kept them from putting seatbelts in the back, which was highly dangerous. To add a cherry on top of the cake, he had to fork out a further $1,700 for a brand new engine, then adding, after that I drove it for a month before someone hit me and totaled it. However, the end to Justin's RAV4—
I imagine the kind of like decals they have, they can't really paint it on. Therefore, they have to like buy the cheapest option possible, which of course would break if it got into a car accident.
Even more brutal. After 5 years of taking his pimped out ride to car shows, Justin's RAV4 caught on fire whilst driving as a result of faulty wires. It was later confirmed that this had nothing to do with the show, and at least Justin's car was the same one he first sent in, as when Tavrish uploaded a video titled I bought an abandoned Pimp My Ride minivan, he'd make a shocking discovery. The show originally introduced the minivan as a 1998 Plymouth Grand Voyager, however Tavrish discovered the car was now a 1999 Dodge Caravan, showing that after they wrecked the original minivan, the show sneakily pimped a completely different car. As a result, Exhibit has been the brunt of most of the show's backlash.
I was the face of the show, you know what I'm saying? So people associate me with what happened to the car.
Which feels pretty unfair given every contestant has said he's an awesome guy. In fact, Exhibit only—
Nah, fuck him. He should have his head on a pike for scamming people from the car.
I actually did Pimp My Ride because I thought they was gonna play my music videos.
However, it instead seemed to have the opposite effect.
The show was taking away my credibility of what I'd already done. It was taking so much time. I wasn't able to tour. I wasn't able to record albums.
Oh, damn, I definitely didn't know.
I was there filming.
Which is even more depressing given he was barely paid for it.
But at that particular time, you wasn't really happy with the pay though.
Nah.
And as a result, it's no surprise that Pimp My Ride is unlikely to make a comeback.
When are we gonna get a Pimp My Ride?
No, there'll be no more Pimp My Ride.
To be honest, I think a remake of the show would work really well. I've seen so many like TikToks online of people like spending thousands on like making a new car, and I think like a show like this would do really well because it just gives like a good avenue for people to like fantasize about like having the dream car for like all this shit. It'd probably be dangerous because I feel like most people that spend so much money on the cars want to drive really fast, so of course. And if he already stated that most of the time it came out of the shop like not ready or prepared to be safe on the road, the number of accidents is gonna go like way up because people like don't give a shit if it's like faulty. They just want to take it out on the road like as soon as possible. I think one of the reasons why there was so many mistakes in this show is that when it comes to like working something like a car, it doesn't work really well in conjunction with a show where you try to like pump out every episode as soon as possible, like quickly, but then you also have to like fit that schedule of like fixing a car. And I imagine most of the people that when they film like a season, they have to get all the cars like in one garage to like fix them at the same time or pimp them out, and they can't really have a group of people focusing on one car. They can only have like one person for each part, therefore they can't really spend as much time and effort to make it as good as they wanted to. I'm surprised it wasn't a lawsuit, because with the two he mentioned about the car being totaled or catching on fire, I feel like that would be a very good like lawsuit, because that can be very good like hard evidence of them like fucking with the car. I mean, the guy still like took it in after, but it wasn't his decision to like put on like all the LEDs that probably caused the fire to happen in the first place. So you could easily just like blame it on them, especially because they don't really mention what they're gonna add on until they show it off, at which point it's already like too late to undo it. So they kind of like they're forced to accept it, especially when like they mentioned all like the hassle of like renting a car out, and by that point they're so annoyed with it that they just want the old car back. Man, it was 7 months. I feel like if they did one car at a time, it would be like way faster to make and not make them wait like half a year. I'm surprised there wasn't even a fight there. Some people are willing to like kill for the car if it takes that long. Jesus Christ.
Come to be hung, devoured and done, while some run, but can't escape ones that's elemental. At any venue, I send you through the hell that real men knew. So we'll